Hello my friends and welcome to Flying Circus Models. Here's the second part of my current project, Gotha UWD Bomber from Wingnut Wings painting. Both fuselage halves were glued together around interior parts. Even though that all details took their places perfectly, the top section didn't fit, as you can see on the video. Thus, I had to trim the inner parts of the fuselage a little bit. When the height was adjusted, I glued the top part and I had to use a lot of super glue to keep it on the place. Then I sanded joints with 600 grit sandpaper and added some Mr. Hobby white putty for the bigger gaps. Once the putty dried, I sanded it too. The tail section was glued to the main gondola, and I also drilled small holes for the control cables that will be attached later. The top part of the tail section was also glued on its place, and I had to use a lot of super glue to hold it too. Putty to fill the gaps and sand everything. For some reason, this kit gave me some troubles that I usually don't have with Wingnut Wing kits. When all sanding and dusty work was completed, the whole model was covered with the Mr. Surfacer 1500 grit gray primer, and I used 1mm masking tape to cover ribs on the wings. And this bird is huge, even bigger than a G.IV Bomber, so I used the full roll of masking tape for it. Also for the fuselage section, and actually tail section that was covered with the linen. I used 2mm masking tape for structural tubes and 1mm for shadows from the internal rigging. With the black paint, I covered all masks on the wings, top and bottom, as well as the tail section. Now we can remove all masks and that will reveal a great shade effect. The rudder had the same pre-shading, and I painted both of them with the very thin layers of white. So the pre-shading effect is still visible. Also with the same white color I covered wings tips for the national markings. This plane had two different types of ailerons during its career. I decided to make the late version with balanced ailerons and bump drop-in tube. The balanced ailerons had slightly different and lighter shade of gray-green color, and I used Mr. Hobby RLM02 for them. But the entire plane was painted with Tamiya XF22 paint, which is also RLM02, but has just a little bit darker shade, which is perfect in my scenario. Here I painted also with the thin layers between ribs first, and once they all were covered with the paint, I just sprayed the entire part from the distance. Hope you can see the pre-shading effect and it wasn't lost on the video. All metal parts like access doors, engine cowls and mounts were painted with the light gray color. It's hard to see the difference because light gray paint was applied on top of the gray primer. Also, I painted all struts with the same paint, and there are tons of them. I had even mark the part numbers in order not to mix up them. Now it's time for the floats, and as you can see, they are massive, more than 25 centimeters or 10 inches long. I decided to add some weight inside just in case to prevent the plane falling on its tail. To be honest, not sure if 10 grams will be enough though, but it's better than nothing. And while I'm using my super glue and blue tack to secure the weight, please don't forget to subscribe and support me on Patreon if you haven't done that yet for some very weird reason. So thank you so much. Okay, so back to the build. The floats were glued and I used clips to hold them while the glue was doing the work. Because they were made out of wood, I painted them with the base Vallejo beige color, and this will be as the base for the wood texture. Same was done with the nose and tail section of the fuselage, since they were made from the plywood too. Now it's time for one of my favorite techniques, wood painting. As usual, I'm going to use oil paints for that. I wanted to use mix of three colors first: burnt umber, raw sienna, and Indian red. But when I mixed them, I didn't like the end color, so I just used only two of them and removed Indian red. Paints were mixed together, and with the help of the flat brush, I put the paint dots on the model and just painted wood grains with it. If the paint is too thick, you can use white or mineral spirit, but you need to be very careful and not to add a lot of it. I really like to work with oils. And if you don't like the results, you can just swipe the paint and start from the beginning. On the nose, I also tried to follow the lines, same like I did with the interior painting. And the floats were painted in the same way. When the oil paint dried, I covered the whole model with the layer of Future, and you can see the difference on the covered and not covered wing part. On the floats, I put a very thick layer of Future to protect the oil paint. Once the feature dried, I used microset salt solution for decals, and to be honest, I don't even know if I had to use those solutions, because decals are fantastic. They cover all plastic parts very well, don't break, even though this model is already 5 or 6 years old. The great part of World War I planes, they didn't have a lot of markings or stencils, so the decaling time was pretty short. When all decals were applied, I covered them with one more thick layer of Future. And one more layer of clear coat, but this time it's semi-gloss to reduce the shine of Future. And that's it for this episode. As usual, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel, press like button and leave your comments below. I read and reply to all of them. Also, if you would like to support my channel, you can do it on Patreon, where you can see my videos early. Also, I share some interesting pictures there. The link is in the description. Thanks for watching and see you in the next episodes.